Former Gauteng Health MEC Qedani Mahlangu has told the inquest sitting in the High Court in Pretoria that she was never informed of patients who died at the two NGOs she visited during the relocation period. 144 patients died during the relocation period. Now, some died while being accommodated at ill-equipped and unlicensed NGOs in 2016 following the closure of Life Esidimeni due to a lack of funding. Now, it's Mahlangu's sixth day on the stand. On Tuesday, she testified that she was not responsible to resolve all the challenges and problems that were faced by the NGOs. Today, she told Advocate Pislela, who is representing the NGOs, that she was not initially told in early 2016 about the deaths of several relocated Life Esidimeni patients. She says she only found out about the deaths in mid-July 2016 after her media liaison informed her about growing media queries about the deaths. Mahlangu says in response, she visited one continuing care retirement community. All right, now let's get the very latest. We're now joined by reporter Nozintombi Miya. She joins me in studio. Nozintombi, let's start with that, that statement that we've just read. So essentially what the former MEC is saying, that she was told, she was not told of the initial deaths, 34 people when she visited the centers in 2016. So talk to us about, what came out of her testimony today.
Yeah. So, today's testimony really led to a lot of backwards and forths between herself and Advocate Pilelani, because he got really frustrated with her, and several times throughout her testimony he kind of scoffed in his questioning of her and asking her, how is it possible that as the MEC responsible for Gauteng Health, she was not aware, she had no inkling, there was no feet on the ground or ears on the ground informing her about the initial 34 deaths that had initially come out in 2016, early 2016, around September, early 2016. And he's saying to her, he does not understand how she was surrounded by all these HOD, heads of this, heads of that, and none of them spoke to her and said to her, we have a serious problem. She went on a site inspection to two of the NGO centers, and she says at that site inspection, the main issue had been about two NGOs fighting over kitchen space, and she'd been worried that would lead to poor care of the NGOs. She said in that meeting what they'd also discussed was the issue about the lack of beds, lack of medication, and the fact that a number of the care workers had left because their salaries hadn't been paid. And again, he says to her that how is it possible that you'd had this meeting, you had no inclination that at those two NGOs there had been deaths reported, and you had no idea, you had no discussion about it, and these were issues and queries that were being raised in the media. The media was going to a media liaison, who at that time had been Steve Mabona, and were asking him to get clarity on the deaths they were hearing that were being reported by families, by insiders at the NGOs, by health care groups such as NGOs and different healthcare unions. How is it that she did not know? She knew nothing. She knew absolutely nothing. And she says she only found out in late September at the Gauteng legislature, when she was making the announcement to then Premier David Makura that 34 former Life Esidimeni patients had died.
It is her sixth day on the stand today. Just perhaps let's take a couple of steps back, because she was also meant to then again give reasons behind why Life Esidimeni was closed down, why we are sitting with this catastrophe at the moment. So talk to us about that testimony. What did she have to say?
Yeah, so that was what had really come out with the testimony that she had yesterday with Advocate George Mukari, and he was asking her that exact same question: who was ultimately responsible for ensuring that the contract, which was worth 300 million rands to Life Esidimeni, would A, be cancelled, and B, all those patients would be relocated to different NGOs. why was there no processes and plans and standards and one person responsible or a team of people responsible for ensuring that each and every single one of those 3,000 Life Esidimeni patients would be relocated in facilities that were adequate, equipped and functional? Why was there no oversight? Why was the move rushed? And she says again that it was not her decision. It had initially come out from a meeting with then Premier David Makura at the Gauteng budget to say that the Gauteng Health Department's budget was inflated and needed to be reduced. And there were about 12 projects that were considered inflated, and one of them had been Life Esidimeni. She then relayed the same conversation or same message to the Provincial Budget Committee, the Health Provincial Budget Committee, on the 26th of November in 2014. And she then said to them that this is what the province is saying, we need to cut budgets. And it was in that, with the different testimonies of the role players that had already made their testimony, saying that she was the one that gave them the instruction to cancel the contract and relocate. And she's saying she was never the final arbitrator of that. She never gave the final go-ahead. All she did was relay a message.
And in fact, that's what advocates who are representing the NGOs essentially want to know. Who is liable? So let's talk, as we wrap up this interview, just about her demeanor, her attitude. I mean, she's been, of course, on the stand for the past 6 days.
Yeah.
She's blatantly refused to answer some questions pertaining to a meeting and minutes related to that meeting. But just talk to us about her demeanor, her attitude. Is she remorseful? Does she sound like she really wants to give, evidence to the best of her knowledge and ability?
Yeah. Her demeanor in the 6 days compared to when she initially was at the arbitration hearings with former Deputy Chief Justice Dikgang Moseneke. At that one, she was very contrite. She was very apologetic. In this inquiry now, perhaps reality has started to set in that this inquest could lead to direct criminal charges being placed on her or other people around her. And she's trying her best to ensure that none of the mud sticks on her. She's not taking any culpability. She's not taking any responsibility. She has large gaps in her memory where she can't recall, she can't remember. Recordings were faulty, they were spotty, they were not a clear or accurate reflection. She seems to be deflecting a lot. She seems to be trying her best to push the blame onto either the Premier, onto either the then Premier, or either onto her HOD or any other heads of officials, or onto different parties except for herself. She's almost acting as if she was a sacrificial lamb. She says again and again, I was just the political head of the Department of Health of Gauteng. That is concerning. She's saying out of her mouth that she was just a political head. Does that then mean that this negates her obligation to ensuring that the lives of the people at Life Esidimeni had been protected and were cared for? Does that then mean that she had no obligation to ensure that she investigated the concerns that started coming out?
All right, Nozintombi Miya, thank you so much for that. Of course, Nozintombi Miya giving us the very latest on that, inquest sitting in the High Court in Pretoria, Life Esidimeni.